A very warm welcome to each and everyone who have joined us for today's webinar on health, safety, and wellness of children and youth. I'm Gurpreet, and I'll be your host and moderator for the day. I'm sure it will be an incredibly enriching session for all of us. Children and youth are the future of this world, and the Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, "Give me a child till 7, and I will show you the man." And the formative years in the life of a child are very important. This stage in life helps determine the future of a person. Therefore, it is necessary that the importance to a child's health is given, and health not being limited to just physical health, but also mental health, their well being, safety in home and environment, learning skills, empowerment, and economic well being. Almost a quarter of the world's population today is the youth. They are the future leaders and the future peacemakers. However, today's children and youth are crippled with problems like substance abuse, obesity, which pose a major threat to their growth and well being. And which is why now more than ever, a discussion around these issues is of utmost importance. We have an incredible lineup of very knowledgeable and experienced speakers today who will give us a deeper insight into the why and the ways of curbing these problems. On this note, I invite Ms. Upinder Preet Kaur Gill, the Director of Programs here at GSA. Upinder has an extensive experience in the field of public health. She's also founder of Girls Rise for Mohali, a social group working towards gender equality in the society. A true woman of substance, she's also an author of a book called Stories of Smoke in Life, wherein she has penned down her experiences in tobacco control. She has completed her MBA in finance from Wilkes University, Pennsylvania, USA. She will steer us further into the session and discuss the objectives of our consultation. Over to you, Pinder ma'am.
Thank you, Gurpreet, for that welcome. And with that, I really want to welcome and thank all our speakers who agreed to be a part of this session. I really want to extend my warm welcomes to Dr. Rana J. Singh, the Deputy Regional Director at the Union, Dr. Meera B. Aghi, the Behavioral Scientist and winner of the Luther L. Terry Award, Dr. Monica Arora, Executive Director at Hriday, Ms. Vishakhi Malik, Associate Director of Policy Advocacy and Communication at Vital Strategies, Mr. Manish Pant, Communications Manager at Vital Strategies, and Mr. Pranay Lal, Senior Technical Advisor at the Union. So thank you all of you, and I really thank the other part of the audience, the children and the youth who are viewing this webinar live on YouTube. We are really thankful that this session have had a very overwhelming response, and we have more than 1,000 registrations for today's session. So this webinar is a series of 3 sessions that are going to take place today, the next Tuesday, and the following Tuesday. And 3 major elements that we intend to cover in these sessions are health, safety, and wellness for children and youth. As Gurpreet has clearly mentioned that how important it is for the generation to be healthy for an upcoming bright future of any country, of any society. So also adding to a little statistics there, I think we all know that our country, our nation is moving from communicable diseases towards non-communicable diseases. And these lifestyle diseases are becoming one of the major reasons for premature deaths. So there's a study from WHO which shows that nearly 2/3 of premature deaths and 1/3 of the total disease burdens in adults are associated with conditions and behaviors that the youth decide to initiate in their youth time. Some, things like tobacco use, physical inactivity, high-risk sexual behaviors, injury, violence, and others. So that brings us to the importance of this session, and we have a very enriching panel who's going to talk about various issues relating to health among children and youth. And over to them, I would request Dr. Rana J. Singh. Jatinder, can we have the next slide, please? The next slide. Next slide. Next. So I would like to invite Dr. Rana J. Singh, Deputy Regional Director, the Union Southeast Asia Office. Dr. Rana has more than 25 years of experience in public health, focusing on management and tobacco control. He's a master trainer for public health courses for mid and senior level managers. He's currently supporting tobacco and NCD control programs in Southeast Asia region. He holds an MD degree in pulmonary medicine, and he's a mentor and a guide to Generation Saver Association also, We have been partnered with the union from past more than 10 years now, and we've been working in tobacco control with the support of the union and under the guidance of Dr. Rana Jasik. So over to you, sir, for the keynote address and setting of the scene of this webinar.
Yes, thank you, Vinder. I hope first of all you all can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, good morning to all of you and welcome to this first webinar of our series on health, safety and well-being of children and youth. No, you see, this is a topic which is, I personally feel, is not an easy one. And still it's unexplored. Thanks to Upinder and team to initiate discussion on this subject when we are all fighting COVID-19 situation in our country. Even during this period, this COVID situation, it is also having an impact on children. They have been trapped with limited communication with their friends, very limited physical activities and so on. Just to share our overall understanding about the issues. So I think Upinder has already shared the objectives. So I will like to share a few things with you. Next, please, Upinder.
Jitinder, next slide, please.
Yes. So you see, if we see public health in last maybe after independence, what do we find? That early childhood and age health, that is geriatric health, that had been a priority as these stages of life were considered as very crucial in human life cycle. So after independence, we had various programs related to mother and child health. And yes, we also had geriatric health getting a lot of attention in all these years. But it is relatively very late that adolescent and youth subpopulation that has got attention of public health experts and even our health system. So this is something which we really started late. And hence it is very crucial that we are all aware of overall dynamics of children, adolescent and youth health with emphasis on gaps or lags in information. And as I said earlier also, it's still an area which has many unexplored aspects of personality of children, adolescent and youth. So we need to understand what is the current status and what is the progress made till date. And now in these three webinars, I hope that some excellent discussion will happen on the subject. Even after so many years, I find that a definition of who is a children, who is a youth, who is a young ones. So even adolescent definition. Now you see WHO defines adolescent as one in the age group of 10 to 19. But in a lot of literature, it is 13 to 19 years of age. And then who is a youth? WHO defines anyone between 15 to 24. And there is another word which is commonly used is young people. So covering everyone from 10 to 24 years of age. And if we see what the United Nations Convention said about right of children defines as anyone below 18 years of age as children. And while I was in medicine, you see children, we used to say up to 12 years. But often our discussion, pediatric age group comes under roughly about 14 years of age. So I think, but anyhow, we will be dealing with children and then youth. So it means the population range is really from the birth till one is 24 years of age, which is the maximum population for youth. Next, please. I won't go into too much detail, but only want to say, because health, all these groups, there are different issues related to them. There is a quote: health and success in school are interrelated. Schools cannot achieve their primary mission of education if students and staff are not healthy and fit, physically, mentally, and socially, as you all know definition of WHO about health. Next, please. Next, now what is basically safety? So what all encompass safety? So if related to children and youth, I think all accidents, injuries, including motor vehicle, then crime and violence against and by them, they all come under a safety part, and then suicides and homicides, which we encounter in age group. So therefore, providing putting prevention measure into practice, and then children other ways of methods of self-protection are all ways to reduce potential of harm to them. Next, please. So now well-being. So you see, this is again something which has a very broad mandate. Actually, what all covers under well-being. Although what we have discussed earlier also, that is also part of well-being, but mainly this deals with the children's emotional and social well-being, which comes from their relationships, from their deepest attachment to their mothers, fathers, grandparents, and few other cherished others like their friends. And early childhood in particular is a time when children's well-being and capacity to flourish and overwhelmingly about love, attachment, and connectedness are very crucial. So it is this time they should spend mostly in the presence of these vital attachment figures. So well-being is again something I think that is very crucial for this age group of adolescents as well as youth. So let's see what experts have to say on this aspect of our personality of children and youth. Next, please. So finally, now just to collate what I have already said, that is on all these three things. So some important health risk behavior among children and youth, they are normally can be divided into these three important ones, but definitely there there can be many others. So one is unhealthy dietary behavior and physical inactivity. I would also say inadequate physical activity, which leads to overweight and obesity. And I think this is one of the topic here which we are going to discuss. Dr. Monica will explain us what is overweight, what is obesity, and what are the causes, and I think how to control them. Then second level is addictions. Again, very crucial. And perhaps one of the most important is tobacco use. Already we know both GYTS data as well as GATS data. And before a child really becomes a person becomes 25 years of age, even as per GATS2, almost more than 67% or 70% has already started tobacco use before they become 25 years of age. And third part is related to their safety, security, and well-being. So here there are many behaviors which result in unintentional injuries, including road accidents and violence, which we have already, various sexual behaviors, and then mental behavior, parenthood, relationships. This all come under overall law of safety, security, and well-being. So I hope that we, in our next three webinars, we will have good understanding of all these subjects, especially the areas on which we are working. One is tobacco control, and second is non-communicable diseases, very important area, NCD, and third is definitely maybe other areas of road safety, and if experts can cover all those elements when we are discussing. And I'm very happy to note that more than 1000 people have registered, and I think huge number are already listening to this deliberation. So thank you once again. Thank you, Upinder. Thank you, all of you. Over to Upinder. Over
Thank
to
you, Gurpreet.
Gurpreet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an engaging and intriguing discussion and giving us a basic insight into these very important issues. Since there's a little announcement that I should make here. Since this video is made for kids, you cannot comment under it. So if anybody has any questions for sir or any of the speakers that will be coming ahead, please send your questions at the email ID that you got the link for the meeting for. And we're really sorry for the inconvenience, but we really, really look forward to your questions. Now, moving on. A precocious young girl, Ananya Kamboj, has represented India at the United Nations ECOSOC Youth Forum twice, and as a young journalist at Global Football for Friendship social program Thrice. She is an ambassador of football, peace, youth empowerment, and continuously working on UN Sustainable Goals of 2017. She'll be guiding us into the first topic for the day, that is the effects of secondhand smoke and prenatal smoking on children and the way ahead to a tobacco-free generation. A very, very warm welcome to Ms. Ananya Kamboj.
Good morning to one and all present here. I am Ananya Kamboj, currently studying in grade 11 at Wake High School, Chandigarh. Today, I will be speaking on the topic, effects of smoking on children and youth. Next slide. The problems that can be caused by smoking and tobacco are heart diseases, lung diseases, stroke, many types of cancer, including lung, throat, stomach, and bladder cancer. Nicotine in tobacco can be as addictive as cocaine or heroin. Smoking affects every part of body. When parents smoke near their children, they not only expose their children to respiratory problems, but also to many health hazards that can be fatal. Next slide. The main reason for children smoking is that when their parents smoke, kids are quick to spot gaps between what their parents say and what they do. And most kids say that the adult whom they most want to become when they grow up is a parent. Next slide. Parents can talk to kids about not smoking in the following ways. Talk about it in a way that doesn't make kids fear punishment or judgment. Keep talking to kids over the years about the dangers of tobacco use and vaping. Even the youngest child can understand that these habits are bad for the body. Encourage kids to get involved in activities that don't allow smoking, such as sports. Show that you value your kids' opinions and ideas. Next slide. The only way that I want to say is that always lead by example. You can only ask your child not to smoke by quitting smoking. I hope you liked my presentation and thank you.
Thank you so much, Ananya, for such an informed presentation. With that, I invite my next speaker. It is said there's no substitute for hard work, dedication, and passion. And to take us deeper into the discussion of the topic of effects of secondhand smoke, prenatal smoking on children, and the way ahead to a tobacco-free generation, we have with us today Dr. Meera Biagi. She's an eminent behavior scientist and a communication expert with more than 4 decades of experience in tobacco control. She has held prestigious positions in International Development Research Center, Canada, CARE International, WHO, UNDP. She is the recipient of WHO Gold Medal on Tobacco Control and Luther L. Terry Award. She holds a PhD in psychology from Loyola University, Chicago. And we really, really appreciate you as joining here today, ma'am. Over to you. We're just waiting for ma'am to join us. Okay, yes. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. May I have my slides? Next, please. I think most of you know that nearly 1 million people die in India due to smoking, and 9% are 9 million die due to secondhand smoke. Yes, India has shown that 52% of the girls, rural 58% and 39% were exposed to secondhand smoke at home. Next, please.
Meera ma'am, sorry to interrupt, but we are not able to hear you properly. Can we just start again? Maybe.
You can't hear me?
No, ma'am, your voice was breaking before. So can we just start again from the previous slide? It's better now because.
You can't hear me properly?
Now we can, ma'am. We can. Now we can.
Okay. I was saying that almost everyone who works in tobacco control knows that nearly 1 million people die in India every year due to smoking, and 0.9 million die due to secondhand smoke. And GATS have shown that 52% of the adults, 58% from the rural areas and 39% from the urban areas were exposed to secondhand smoke at home. That means their family members were smoking. Next, please. No, secondhand smoke is the combination of smoke from the burning end of a cigarette or bidi and the smoke breathed out by the smokers. Now, and we also know that secondhand smoke contains more than 7,000 chemicals. Hundreds are toxic and 70 are known to cause cancer. But I think important thing is to know that secondhand smoke is 3 to 4 times more toxic per gram of particulate matter than the mainstream tobacco smoke. So the smoker is not as harmful to himself as he is to the others. Next, please. Children who are exposed to secondhand smoke get more ear infection, respiratory problems, sore throat, stuffy nose, headache, puru, asthma, and bronchitis. And we also know that secondhand smoke exposure causes children who already have asthma to experience more frequent and severe attacks. And as a result, children of parents who smoke are found to miss school days because they get sick. Next, please. If your children see you smoking, they may want to try it. Because whatever they want, they see us doing, they want to try it. And they may grow up smoking as well. If there are cigarettes, BDs at home, children are more likely to experiment with smoking. And this is the first step in becoming addicted to smoking. Then children who serve hookah to their parents and are to test invariably take up hookah smoking. I think those of you who know that when the hookah has to be smoked by an elder person, we usually ask the younger person to fill up his chillum and all that. And the younger person also has to try whether it works or not. And so they get addicted to it. They want to try it on their own also. So they look for opportunity to try it on their own. Next, please. Now, if you smoke, stop smoking. Quitting is the best way to prevent your children from taking up smoking. We know this. Always advise your children and all young people not to ever take to smoking, because it would be more effective if you tell your children not to smoke when you do not smoke yourself. We all know that it's so shallow if we don't do something and we tell our children to do something. So in this case, we are saying that if a parent would be very effective in telling the child not to smoke if he is a non-smoker himself. But look here, even if he smokes, make sure that you tell the young one not to smoke. It makes sense, even if you are smoking yourself, to tell the young one not to smoke. It's more beneficial than not telling them not to smoke. Telling them that you made a mistake by taking up smoking is has got a lot of potential. You have to tell the child that, I made a mistake in taking up smoking, but I want you not to take it up because it is an addiction and it takes very, very long time and lot of effort to really give it up. Next, please. All this has come from the gurus of school tobacco control education programs. This is not me speaking so much, but the people who were the gurus of school education programs. Before the FCTC came into operation, there were three very important meetings, one held in Kobe, which was on women, one held in India, which was in general during the Mr. Vajpayee's time, and the third was in Singapore on the young people, on the youth, because everyone by then knew that, you know, we have to check the youth if we want to have people not smoking when they grow up. So the story from Singapore is that all the gurus who have been doing in Canada, Australia, and the United States, doing school education programs for making the children and youth not to take up smoking, they stood up on the podium and they said, we are very sorry. We think that you should be spending money on school education programs because youth school education programs do not work. Next, please. Next slide. No, anyone who the youth have affection like the peer group, and they have love and respect for parents, teachers, sports instructors, and other meaningful adults in the family and community should not use tobacco. They came to this conclusion that this is the only way a youth will not take up smoking. Peer pressure, kids whose friends smoke are more likely to smoke themselves. Basically, it gives them a sense of belongingness. They don't feel that they are queer, they are strange, that everybody is smoking and they are not. I know myself, when I had gone to study in the United States, all the students with whom I was studying, they used to smoke. And I used to feel so out of place, you know, but I was so afraid that my parents would not like me to smoke because they don't smoke. So even though they know that it is wrong, they don't like it. Many teenagers try to smoke so that their peer group won't leave or ignore them. You know, they will consider you as their equals. Now, in Srikakulam district of Andhra Pradesh, when a girl reaches the age of 16 and she is about to be married, all her friends advise her that you should start smoking. And in Andhra, in Srikakulam district, in Andhra, they smoke backward. They call adapoga, backward smoking. And so they tell her that you should start adapoga because if you don't smoke, your husband will smell your mouth in the morning. And the only way to get rid of the smell in your mouth is that you smoke adapoga. Next, please. Now, in order to address the achievement of EFG, the final and the most important input would come from youth, both boys and girls themselves, like the young people we have here. I think they will have suggestions for us. They will have to guide us in what will make them stay tobacco free. Next, please. Past work, however rudimentary, it's not a very, very, you know, pointed work, but it is rudimentary. They would like the young people who were asked what would make them not to take up smoking, and they would say that they would like to be surrounded by those who do not smoke themselves. They would like that there is no promotion of tobacco, no advertisements of tobacco, no promotion in any way. They would like that the shops that sell goodies like chocolate cookies do not sell tobacco also. They would also like that their teachers not to use tobacco. And they would like their favorite movie stars not to use tobacco. Thank you. And I think this is the last one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You've raised some very interesting points as well, and you've also pointed out what children really want and what our generation wants at this time. And I think it is very important for the shareholders to understand that, as well as the young people and the smokers to take responsibility for what they're doing. They can't just get away by saying we're just harming ourselves and not you. I think they need to understand that they're harming a lot of more people just by smoking. And I think, ma'am, it was a very, very engaging presentation for us. Ma'am, I have a question from the audience. Would you be interested in answering?
Yes.
Ma'am, one of the students have asked, I've seen my elder brother smoking, and as a younger sister, how can I help my brother leave smoking?
What is it? I see my older brother smoking.
And as a younger sister, how can I help him leave smoking?
Oh, they both are smoking. Well, that's a long process. I think that for that, you need a lot of patience. I think there are several steps that one has to follow in order to really, make people give up smoking. I think I also feel that, has done a fantastic job. And I think I would like to, given the opportunity, I would like to tell what are the statistics of those programs which perhaps will lead to this. So I think to answer these two answer this girl who is talking about her brother and her younger sister, I think that somebody has to really tell them. Somebody has to inform them. And informing doesn't mean you just give them a sermon.
Right.
The knowledge has to be comprehensive. They have to understand everything about what happens if you smoke. It has to be comprehensible. It has to be educationally sound. It has to be also interesting. If it is boring, nobody will listen to it. And it has to be credible and realistic, and it has to be practicable. What you tell people, they can repeat that. It's not that there is something that you are telling them and there is no possibility that they can do that. So I think that there are several things in the education that can be imparted to people, but I think you need a lot and lots of patience for that. And I think that, but it can be done. I have had several opportunities in my life and I have been able to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this answer. Thank you so much. And I hope whoever's asked this question has got their answer. Now we'll be starting off with our next topic of discussion. And I would like to invite this very young person today with us, Prableen Kaur. She's a speaker of resources and has represented her school in numerous forums. She strongly believes in bringing a positive change in the world around her. And today she will be giving us the introduction to our next topic regarding child obesity, its prevention and control. Over to you, Prableen Kaur.
It is health that is real wealth and not the pieces of gold and silver. Good morning, everyone. My name is Prableen Kaur from Sacred Soul School. I study in 10th standard and today I am here to present my views on the topic health. Health was earlier said to be ability of the body functioning well. However, as the time has evolved, the definition of health has also evolved. Nowadays, during the pandemic times, health is the primary thing after which everything else follows. When you maintain a good health, everything falls into proper place. Next slide. Yeah. Good health is dependent on the following factors. Number 1, clean environment. Number 2, proper and nutritious food. Number 3, public hygiene. Number 4, regular exercise. Number 5, proper drinking of water. Next slide. So here are the impacts of maintaining good health. Number 1, controls weight. For children and youngsters, eating right and exercising regularly can help in maintaining a healthy weight. We should plan at least 150 minutes of physical activity every week. When you start your day with a healthy breakfast, you avoid becoming overly hungry. The foods which are low in calories and high in nutrients help loosen weight. Number 2, improves mood. Physical fitness in children and youngsters helps in production of endorphins. Now, what are endorphins? Endorphins are the chemicals released by the brain that leave you feel happier and more relaxed. When we feel better, your confidence increases. Sharing your feelings with loved ones results in better mood and good health in children and youngsters. Number three, combats diseases. Good health prevents certain health conditions such as heart diseases, stroke, high blood pressure, diseases like diabetes, depression, cancer, arthritis, etc. Number four, boosts energy. We've all experienced a lethargic feeling when we eat too much of unpleasant food, right? So when we eat good food and it helps in good delivering of oxygen to your body and the nutrients too. It helps in good cardiovascular system so that you have more energy to do your daily activities. It also helps in boosting energy by promoting better sleep. Insufficient sleep can trigger a variety of problems. Number five, improves longevity. When you remain healthy, you boost your chances for a longer life. American studies showed that the children and youngsters who walked just 30 minutes a day significantly reduced their chances of dying prematurely compared with those who exercised infrequently. When you have good health, you will have a longer lifespan. You will be amazed to know that sitting for more than 3 hours cuts off a person's life expectancy. Next slide. Now let's come up to mental health. Just as physical fitness helps our body to stay strong, mental fitness helps us to achieve and sustain a good state of mental health. When we are mentally healthy, we are able to cope up better with difficult times in our personal as well as professional lives. Managing stress can have a positive impact on heart diseases. Next slide. Now, here are the ways to improve mental health in children and youngsters. Number one, get physical. Do more and more physical activities, which will automatically improve your mental abilities. Do you know that lack of exercise is now causing as many deaths as smoking across the world? Number two, eat right. A study reveals that poor diet has played a role in significant increase in mental health problems over the past 50 years. Number three, take a break. I'm sure that you will agree with me that breaks are very important. If you will work continuously, you will feel exhausted and your body will suffer from stress. Stress and depression are becoming a huge problem nowadays. Iceland is the most depressed place. So break is the most important thing which we need. Number four, go to bed on time. Sleep deprivation has a significant negative effect on mental health of children and youngsters. To avoid this, we should go to bed on time. Next slide. Thank you. It was pleasure to talking you all.
Thank you so much, Prableen, for that introduction. Now, introducing our next speaker. She's an extremely dedicated pioneer in her field. She's a director of health promotion division and professor at Public Health Foundation of India. She is the executive director at Hriday, that houses the Healthy India Alliance, and member of various expert committees formed by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. She is also the member of Second World Health Organization Civil Society Working Group on NCDs. She has been awarded WHO Director General World No Tobacco Day Award 2012. She'll be giving us further insights into our topic related to child obesity and its prevention and control. It's a real honor to have you with us today here, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me. It is always a pleasure to be speaking at such forums where I know that audience is going to be school students, youth in particular. I am very excited whenever I get to interact with youth, and that is one interaction I started my career with and I have continued to retain throughout my career. because I personally get really motivated seeing such speakers. Really grateful to the two young speakers today. I feel we should take a step back. You people should take lead in the NCD prevention and control. You are really the change agents, and seeing your level of knowledge and enthusiasm really makes me feel it is time we can hand over the baton to you to lead this battle. Before I start with my topic, the researcher in me would like to make a bit of observation. Dr. Agi, who is a guru of tobacco control in India, she did point out about school health programs, and the evidence cited was of various countries where school health programs in tobacco control have not been shown to be very, very effective. Or the evidence, just to clarify, is that long-term impact of these school interventions is not very positive. So that means if there has been a behavior change, whether this youth actually went on, he or she was a non-tobacco user because of an intervention in school, whether this youth went on to become an adult and remain a tobacco user or not, that was something which was questionable. However, in Indian context, school health programs have shown to be very, very effective. In fact, school health programs on tobacco control are part of our National Tobacco Control Program. In India, what is not known is whether there is a long-term impact. But impact of interventions, which are 2 years intervention, are scientifically developed, are theory-oriented presentations, are very positive. And if anyone would be interested, I would encourage you to look at Maitri program, which was conducted, and it was a group randomized trial which actually brought down tobacco use in intervention schools by 17%, and there was an increase of 68% in control schools. So very clearly highlighting, if there is no intervention given in schools, tobacco use would rise at a very speedy rate. I'll stop here, but if others have any clarification or interest in that area, I would be very happy to send answers on emails, and I would like to come to my topic. But just that I wanted to clarify about where the evidence gap is, just in case anyone has any doubts in that area. Okay, so quickly coming back to shifting gears to obesity. As many of us know, obesity is a chronic, complex disease and a driver of non-communicable diseases. We have heard earlier speakers talk about it, and without adequately addressing obesity as a health issue, current efforts to achieve the universal health coverage, many of you would have heard about. This was spearheaded at the UN General Assembly in September 2019. All the efforts towards universal health coverage will fail if we are not able to effectively address obesity. So the slide currently clearly shows that the burden of overweight obesity is increasing. It has increased from 1975 to 2016 as per the evidence. However, now low and middle income countries are also continuing to see this burden rise. And the challenge with low and middle income countries like India is we have double burden of malnutrition. We have underweight as well as overweight and obesity. And it is more important to underline here that 80% of overweight obese children, they are likely to stay overweight obese into adulthood and are also more likely to develop non-communicable diseases at very young ages. It's not that they will develop non-communicable diseases as others would develop who are normal weight, but overweight obese will develop it much faster. Also, the recent evidence on COVID-19 is that people with pre-existing comorbidities, if there are people who already have NCD risk factors, they are more susceptible and they will become severely ill if they contract coronavirus infection and lead to COVID-19. The complications will be very, difficult for them to handle. The evidence is same for overweight, obese, particularly for obese people, that the risk is about twice. If they are overweight, obese, their complications with COVID-19 would be much severe. So this is an area which does require an early action. And the reasons we very well know: unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, these are the major risk factors that are escalating trend of childhood obesity. Next slide, please. In India, the burden, as I said, is very evident. A combined prevalence of overweight, obesity from a meta-analysis is showing 19.3% prevalence. Also, looking at screen time, it is about 4 hours per day among adolescents in the age group of 10 to 19. And 50% of children and adolescents, they do not meet the existing physical activity guidelines of being at least moderately to vigorously physically active for 60 minutes in a day. Those are not being met with, which is leading to this increase in overweight, obesity. Next slide. Many of you would have seen the recent evidence which is coming from other countries. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So the evidence from other countries particularly has come that during lockdown, countries like Italy are already starting to see an increase in overweight, obesity among children because they are not attending schools, they are not going to any sports activity, and are spending more time on screen and also eating unhealthy food items. So in these times, it becomes particularly more important how we can be physically active and eating healthy, building our immunity to fight the infection so that we are healthy enough and do not contract this infection. This is the result again from India, from CNNS survey showing overweight, obesity, and highest being seen in Tamil Nadu, Goa, and Delhi. Next slide, please. So there was a WHO commission on ending childhood obesity. They gave 6 recommendations. These are on the screen, but I would just like to highlight that intervening in schools at very early age was one of the recommendation, which would be of significant concern to you as school students. But also what many of you did talk about, having a healthy diet, sleeping, sleep patterns, physical activity. These all comprehensive programming have to be developed for school-age children and adolescents. But also important is to have family-based multi-component services available for those who are already overweight, obese, to be able to manage their weight. Nutrition and health interventions in early childhood, when given through the school setting or the community setting, they provide opportunities for improved population health and well-being. Next slide. So why we are emphasizing and why we have been doing school health programs. Next slide. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. So I will just be showing some examples of school health programs we have done on healthy living habits and the results of those research studies. But why we are emphasizing on school health programs is because school setting is an ideal setting to inculcate these habits right from an early age, because one, school environment is an enabling environment. It provides opportunities for the students to practice these behaviors. They can be trained to become change agents by making policies for making their schools to be healthy, but also then making policies for healthy families, healthy communities, and the like. Also, health literacy, when it is combined with giving skills to students to become the change agents, there is ownership of the issue, which leads to sustainable behavior change. Next slide, please. So school is the right age when behaviors are getting etched and should be intervened at the right time. Talking about one program we did particularly for diabetes awareness and prevention education. This was done in Delhi schools with 2,000 students, 6th and 7th grade students, and 2 years of intervention was given on not just improving their knowledge on healthy diet and physical activity behaviors, but also giving them various other activities which gave them opportunities to practice the skills they had learned. And various interactive fun activities were done with them so that whatever is taught is reinforced, and behavior change does require at least that much of time when we can measure change from baseline to end line. Next slide, please. So we saw that this 2 years of intervention actually led to change. You can clearly see that from baseline to end line in the first graph, we clearly see a change in the percentage. So more vegetable consumption was done by the students, it increased, and all the unhealthy behaviors showed a decline. So carbonated drink, Indian sweet, fried snacks, and packaged chips were all coming down because of this intervention. Next slide. So there is a lot of advantage of doing school health programs, but obesity is not just an individual's problem. It is a societal problem, and all of society has a role in it. If you see this model, it was developed by us as an impact model for tobacco control, basically for prevention of tobacco use, but it can be applied to all the risk factors. And just to explain that, we have to intervene at the individual level, which is the inner circle, orange. We have to change the family behaviors, the social environmental context of the children, and the blue circle outside is the global national policies. So our policies also have to be supportive so that the behavior change that children bring about after they get such interventions, their behavior is sustainable. And what is the role of policies? There should be no advertising of junk food when children programs are being shown. There should be subsidies of food if children have to eat fruits and vegetables. They should be cheaply available for low socioeconomic status students and children. They should be able to afford healthy meals. So there are a lot of policy angles as well for obesity prevention and control. Next slide, please. These are various programs which are currently ongoing, which is midday meal scheme, comprehensive school health program, but something recently launched by the government of India is Ayushman, under Ayushman Bharat, a comprehensive school health program. It is health promotion program and based on 11 themes, wherein teachers and peer leaders will be trained to implement this program in all the schools of the country. Next slide. Here are various guidelines which FSSAI has issued after a PIL was introduced in the court by one of the NGOs, Uday Foundation, on providing schools with healthy meals options, and the canteen policies were to be modified based on these guidelines. So it restricts and limits the sale of foods which are high in fat, salt, and sugar. So these guidelines do specify to schools as to what should be the canteen policy and what kind of food should be available in canteens. Next slide, please. This continues on to the guidelines of FSSAI. So there have to be nutrition guidelines, proper food labeling, so that when children know what kind of food they have to eat, they should be able to pick up a packaged food and see what are the nutrition labeling on it. They should be able to read the labels and be able to take a decision whether they want to consume a healthy food item, or they want to, if they feel they want to continue using unhealthy food items, they should know what are the consequences of those with proper education and awareness in the school setting. Next slide. These are various policies again, Central Board of Secondary Education, University Grants Commission, all of them have given guidelines on restricting access to junk food and promoting physical education in school and college setting. Next slide. There are various national and international initiatives which are going on apart from the research studies. So next slide. These are various campaigns, like in Delhi, it was done as Delhi Active, Daily Active. This campaign was launched to promote physical activity among children. A smartphone app was launched so that they can count their steps and the like. Next slide. Enough is a global campaign on promoting action on NCD prevention and control, and various school students every year do participate in Walk the Talk, which is WHO's campaign just before World Health Assembly, and also various social media activities and on-ground activities take place. This time Walk the Talk was basically done virtually. So everyone around the world in their individual houses or around their neighborhood did physical activity and posted their pictures on how they are being physically active. Next slide. This is a website by World Obesity Federation on providing a safe platform for young people to get information on avoiding obesity, and also to be able to interact safely to understand how to prevent and manage their overweight obesity. On the right is a case study undertaken by Healthy India Alliance, where they wrote to the government on increasing taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages. So increasing taxes reduces consumption of these unhealthy drinks. And as a result, we did get a higher taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages. Next slide. We all know about International Yoga Day. We observe it is around the corner, and Rahagiri Days, which are observed in various cities now. These are all excellent initiatives to promote community action on physical activity to avoid overweight obesity. Next slide. This is another initiative by World Obesity Federation, where they wrote to WHO that the evidence on obesity and COVID is very clear, and the future messaging from WHO should highlight this more, and action needs to be taken in this regard, that people are able to be healthy and not be overweight, obese, so that they are not prone to COVID-19 complications and mortality. Next slide. So just to conclude, saying that as children, definitely you can make choices once you know what is the right kind of food and activity pattern that you need to follow. But you are also the leaders, so you can help your peer group change their behaviors. At the same time, school has an environment, they can have healthy policies in schools. Teachers are role models. In Indian context, we do still have students looking up to teachers and listening very carefully to what teachers have to say. That so these messaging through teachers are very, very important at young ages. And as they get into middle school and in their college life, it is the peer group which is very important. So these youth need to convert themselves into youth health ambassadors and spread this message far and beyond their individual circles. Also very important is that there is intersectoral convergence. So health ministry has to work with education ministry, and that's what Ayushman Bharat school health program is, where both the ministries are working together to spread the right message through the right messengers to the target audience, that is the youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for telling us the importance of early intervention and then awareness regarding the harms of obesity, control over control over advertisements, like not showing them during children's programs and school level programs, the promotion of physical activity. I think these are very, very important steps that need to be taken, if not to eradicate, but curb the problem of obesity. Finally, I think that this conversation needs to happen, like you said, at a very, very basic level, and it is very important for policy level intervention as well. Ma'am, we do have 2 questions from the audience. If you'll be comfortable taking them, can I ask them? Ma'am, so our first question is, what is the practical solution to combat incorrect dietary problems amongst students? It is a 2-part question, so I'll ask this part first and then the second, but this is the first part. What is the practical solution to combat incorrect dietary problems among students?
So definitely one is knowledge. having the right kind of knowledge as to, first of all, how much should be your calorie intake. Most important message is you have to balance calorie intake with the calorie burn. So there has to be this balance. What is your burning of your calories? Are you consuming that many calories which you are able to expend? So understanding that, and also it is very, very important to be able to pick up a pack and read. Please do read the labels. Currently, they are not very informative, but still you get to know how much is the fat, sodium, sugar content. Anything that we are eating, we do not realize how much of sugar is going into our diet. So it is very, very important to be aware. If you just start writing a diary of what you have consumed in a day and just calculate your rough calories, you would very easily come to know if you are overweight, obese, you are consuming more than 2000 calories in a day. So it is very, very important just to be cognizant of what you are eating. That will help you correct your behavior.
Right. So ma'am, the second part of the question is, mental health is one of the biggest challenges faced by the students, and how can schools help in combating mental health issues in their students, and what is the role of parents in it?
So very important in the current context, and India particularly, is that mental health issues are coming out of urban context is because of the pressure of studies. In the rural context, there are many other issues. So this is very, very important for parents and children to realize that they have to identify where are the red flags. There are programs where these diagnostic tools are given to laypersons to be able to identify when they need to intervene. But also it is very important for children to understand that they need to talk to adults. They need to talk to their friends. They need to talk to adults as well. Because all said and done, it is the parents who they come back to with any problem they have. Even when they become adolescents and they become young adults, they stop talking to their parents. It is very important they talk to the parents, they talk to their friends, and if required, now there are no more stigma and taboos around being having a mental health condition, whether it is depression, anxiety. These need to be talked about. And now there are many other social media platforms also available. You can please log on to those. You can write to them. You can seek help online. So it is important, first of all, we don't need to stress about anything in life. We all have been hearing these so many positive messages that nothing is so important. Even failure is a step to success. So it's very, very important to embrace that concept in life and keep moving forward.
Right, absolutely, ma'am. And just to tell the audience, we do have a mental health session scheduled for the 23rd of June, which will be dedicated to this very topic, and you will get a lot of deeper insight into the topic. Ma'am, we do have another question, and it is pertaining to mental health only. It says mental health of children is affected due to mobiles and online platforms. And since in the present scenario, it is impossible to prevent online classes or I think online access, what can be done to prevent mental harm to students?
Again, it is discipline. Not only for children, I'll tell you, even I at this age, if I pick up my mobile phone to send a message to someone, it is work related. As soon as I go on to my WhatsApp or my Facebook, half an hour is gone.
Yes, yes.
Without my knowing, my half an hour is gone. So it is very, very important to have that discipline. When will we pick up our mobile phone? What for? And we have to learn to switch it off and keep it. Even we as professionals, our whole life currently is on mobile phones and laptops, and we need to decide that balance, not only for children, but even for adults. It is very important for us to make a timetable and be gadget free. It is definitely affecting us in terms of creating more stress for us and leaving less time for being productive.
Absolutely. Mindless scrolling is taking away all of our time. So thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us and giving us such an informative session. It really, really means a lot to us. And thank you so much for joining us. Now we'll be moving to our next session. And today we have two very young trailblazers in the field of tobacco control, Ms. Visakhi Malik and Mr. Manish Pant. Ms. Malik is a strategic communist specialist at Vital Strategies. She is a core group faculty for tobacco control leadership program by John Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. She holds MPhil and master's degree in sociology from JNU Delhi and bachelor's degree in sociology from LSR Delhi. Mr. Pant is working with Vital Strategies India office as a communications manager and is a lead on managing media relations earned and social media for NCD programs with focus on tobacco control. He is also a strategic communications professional with more than 13 years of experience in journalism, corporate communication, and media advocacy. He holds a master's in mass comm degree from Delhi University. They will be discussing with us a very important topic, that is the industry manipulation leading to unhealthy lifestyle, mainly pertaining to food and tobacco industry. We are delighted to have you both here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Gurpreet. I'll just start disfigurement. They work, and they work equally on all demographics, whether it is youth or the older population. So what I'm trying to say is that these campaigns are there for you to watch, and there were certain questions on how to help others quit. So these campaigns are very hard hitting, and you can look at these campaigns, and these campaigns are describe the kind of the financial and health burdens that these inflict on not only the user but also their family members. Going from campaigns, I'm going to talk about I would need my slides. I guess now
I'll just check in on that. I think they're facing some kind of a problem here. But while you said that, these campaigns really are hard hitting, and the packaging, which was really campaigned, and then now it has reached the 80% limit. Ma'am, how do you think that these can be approached with a certain sensitivity? Because, with this also comes a stigma attached of smoking, and some cultures actually celebrate it, right? It's like a part of their tradition to smoke hookahs. And how do we curb that problem by telling them that it's bad for you, and yet say in a way that is not offensive, because it is very easy to offend, in especially current political scenario, to offend somebody religiously. And that is something that really becomes a big challenge when you're dealing with these problems in areas where it is a part of their culture and religion.
So these campaigns are basically designed, as I said, it's called social and behavior change campaigns. So earlier we used to call these campaigns as information, education, communication, because what they were really doing was just providing information and knowledge on, the harms of quitting. But over time, we developed these campaigns to become social and behavior change campaigns, because that's exactly what they are trying to do. So on one hand, these campaigns are designed for individual behavior change, by showing them the deadly effects of using tobacco. And on the other hand, these campaigns are designed through various integrated strategies like social media or interpersonal communication, through which we can actually look at a social norm change. And these campaigns are definitely inclined towards that. We have evaluated these campaigns, and we have seen that people have shown intention to quit after seeing these campaigns. And they have shown intention to talk to other people in their environment about quitting. So that's kind of a social norm change that we are looking at. And also, people have supported the various policies that government of India is implementing, for tobacco control. So those kind of results have been seen by us in evaluation of these campaigns. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is that these campaigns definitely also change the social norms. And as you rightly said, in India, the tobacco scene is a little more complicated, because we have so many different kinds of products. In other countries it would be just smoking, maybe, but in India we have BDs, cigarettes, and then we have various forms of smokeless tobacco, and then we have the issues of secondhand smoke. So we are trying to address all of these kinds of tobacco issues. And on top of that, then there is industry manipulation. And we don't really blame we are not being judgmental about smokers when we are implementing these programs, because we also understand that there is an environment that is created around them. Like, for example, for youth, I would say there are various aspirational surrogate advertisements that are promoted. There are a lot of events that are promoted to entice youth. So therefore, an entire environment is created to hook them on. And that's what we need to break, and we need to denormalize it, and we need to inform youth about it so that they can take action.
Right. I think the PPT is probably here. Yes. Yeah. Sorry for the delay, ma'am, and I really like this discussion we just had.
So coming from what I'm saying, I think we can skip the slides, and can we just move? Yeah. So 1 second. So these are the national level mass media campaigns that I was talking about. We've done around 20 campaigns now with the Ministry of Health, which are aired in 17 languages on TV, radio, billboards. And TV, radio, and billboards are basically traditional mass media channels, and they have the highest impact and reach. So when we implement an integrated social campaign, so mass media, traditional mass media are our main communication channels, because they have the highest impact and reach. And as you can see, these are some of the ads which focus on different kinds of tobacco use, like smoking, smokeless, and secondhand smoke. Next slide. So we were, I basically, our topic is to talk about how industry manipulates and, entices youth into smoking. So these are some typical industry interference tactics that I wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about. So one is, tobacco taxes. So when, there are certain policies that are implemented, and the, industry interferes in those policies. Like, for example, as Dr. Monica said, that, raising taxes is an important strategy to control tobacco or obesity. And the industry interferes by highlighting the illegal distribution and cross-border smuggling to deter these policies, and they have various other tactics to deter these policies. Then there are marketing restrictions, but they interfere in those marketing restrictions by by promoting surrogate advertisements, and they also promote tobacco through various sponsorship programs. And you may have seen fashion shows, etc., which are cricket matches which are sponsored by industry. So as far as youth is concerned, there are global campaigns that are implemented by the tobacco industry to encourage youth, and as I was saying, that they show you a very aspirational style, like live life king size, and they promote a lot of other myths, like you would remain slim if you smoke tobacco, and those kind of promotions are done. And when it comes to access, there are policies around banning of smoking is banned in public places and making workplaces smoke free. But then there are tactics which are applied to create false worries about public support, and how it can harm the local economy. Next slide. So I'm just going to take you through some slides which will basically show you how blatantly industry is targeting especially the youth. So this first slide talks about how youth is influenced by smoking idols on screen. And we have a lot of studies. We have WHO studies, and I think PHFI has also done a lot of studies which show that how youth are basically influenced by Bollywood actors. So when these tobacco products are smoking is promoted in very aspirational style, so there is a huge tendency that youth will follow these idols and take up smoking. So this is one way through which industry targets you. Second, next slide. Yeah, so this is another example of how industry targets the youth. If you see on the left side of your screen, so there are tobacco products that are sold around school, which is against the law, and that's how they promote smoking among children and various around various educational institutions. Next slide. So this is another example. If you look at the left-hand side of your screen, so there is something called point of sale advertising. So there are a lot of some catchy ads which are of course in the way of surrogate ads, because advertising of tobacco is banned. So they do it in a very surrogate way, but they put it on at very eye level. These are catchy, which lure kids, even in shops where and tobacco is sold in shops which sell other products also. So this is how industry targets the youth by enticing them through these ads at point of sale. Next slide. Yeah, so this is again a shop which so this slide talks about the sale of loose cigarettes. So basically, as Gurpreet was talking, that we have pack warning. So when there is a tobacco product, we have 85% of the pack of the product which is covered by graphic cancer, etc. And these graphic health warnings are basically a policy to prevent youth from initiating tobacco. But when the shopkeepers, they sell loose cigarettes, then one is that the children and youth can buy them at low prices, so whatever pocket money they have, so they can buy loose cigarettes easily. And secondly, they are not able to see the pack warnings, so that they can be prevented. So this is another tactic or a way through which industry targets the youth. Again, we have on social media there is a whole lot of cigarette promotion, and how industry is making smoking a very aspirational thing for youth, and promoting it on social media. This is one example of that. Next slide. Yeah, so these are some more examples, as you can see, how industry is targeting youth. And this is about e-cigarettes. Although e-cigarettes are banned now in India with a lot of advocacy efforts, but e-cigarettes basically are promoted among youth in different flavors to entice them. So this is one example of that. Next slide. Yeah, so I'm going to stop here and I'm going to ask my colleague Manish to take over from here. He's going to basically talk about a study which we did to analyze unhealthy commodities and which include alcohol, food, as well as tobacco. He'll talk about this and then talk about what are the actions that youth can take. I just wanted to say that we have focused more on tobacco control in this because of paucity of time. So we'll talk more about tobacco and less about food industry right now.
Thank you so much, Vaisakhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Vaisakhi. Hi, everyone. I would be talking about, as speakers before me have already spoken about, the importance of adopting healthy lifestyles, and also how NCDs and primarily tobacco control, consumption of tobacco, and consumption of unhealthy commodities such as sugary drinks and other unhealthy products is detrimental to one's health. But what we did basically, moving forward with the presentation. So what we did with this study was we actually wanted to analyze, if unhealthy commodities, how they are being presented through Bollywood movies, which is the most, we can say, the biggest platform that India has. And we can also say that it has a lot of impact on people, especially youth. So we wanted to analyze the impact of these unhealthy commodities depiction. We studied a period of around 20 years in which we analyzed top films of every year. So in a nutshell, we analyzed 300 films. And what's more, what's most what was most revealing to us was 93%. I mean, almost all the films have had at least one occurrence of alcohol, 70% had at least one occurrence of tobacco, and 21% films had at least one occurrence of branded fast food. Now, it tells us that the depiction of these unhealthy commodities in Bollywood is very, very high. They are, combined, they are being projected together, all these unhealthy commodities, and individually as well. So which makes it all the more harmful. And the makers of these Bollywood films are also kind of taking a lot of money from the industry to place the products in their movies, so that these consumption of these commodities is normalized. Coming back to the data, tobacco and alcohol occurrences were more common in A-rated films above the age of 18 years. So just the right target audience to actually sell their product and kind of make their product aspirational and normal to consume. Next slide, please. Fast food depiction is a new thing which has come up as far as depiction in Bollywood movies is concerned. Since the year, I think around 2002 onwards, there is a sharp increase of fast food depiction. Tobacco, of course, has the depiction of tobacco has gone downwards. It is especially because there is a law which which mandates Bollywood producers and also filmmakers to not show tobacco. And even if they do, they have to follow the film rules by putting in a disclaimer, showing the ads of anti-tobacco public service announcement before and during the depiction. So the depiction of tobacco has obviously gone down, which is in a way which guides us to the path of how laws should be made while marketing unhealthy commodities. And through the paper, we've tried to analyze and as a policy kind of ask, we are saying that marketing of unhealthy commodities should be strictly regulated. Like in the case of tobacco, although there's a lot of work which needs to be done as far as that law is also concerned. The second is prohibit funded product placement to denormalize the use. Like I said, that the marketing promotions in movies by the companies should be regulated. And then there are different subsidies being given to the producers and the makers of the film when they also shoot the film in a particular city or a particular state. Those can be or should be removed, or there should be strict kind of adherence of anti-tobacco and depiction of unhealthy commodities in their films. If they and the government subsidy should be removed if at all they are showing any kind of these scenes. So this will be or can be a good kind of a deterrence as far as showing these things are concerned. Next slide, please. These are some of the examples of how industry kind of markets their product, which Vishakhi also mentioned at the beginning of her presentation, that promotion of tobacco is banned in India, but how these company take advantage of the lacuna in the law is by surrogate advertising. As you can see on your screen, that a prominent literary fest is sponsored by a leading pan masala brand, and the hoarding that you can see of Pierce Brosnan as James Bond is actually appealing to kids, if I'm not wrong, or to the youth. Fashion show depiction on your right is being sponsored by a leading cigarette brand. And then surrogate advertising as far as the silver pearls, I think it's related to pan masala or tobacco products. So being promoted by Bollywood industry, having celebrities as their brand ambassadors, of course, scores a lot of points as far as their target audience, especially youth, are concerned. And one more important point, that targeting their products to youth is very, very important for all the unhealthy commodities. Is, as Dr. Monica and the previous speakers have also spoken about, the menace of non-communicable diseases is leading to death and disease. So they constantly need to get on new users and consumers. So therefore targeting youth is very, very important for them. Next slide, please. Okay, this is again, to target youth, sale of tobacco and related products such as pan masala and other unhealthy commodities on retail websites to target youth. Although this is also, the government of India is trying to curb this a lot, but still there are slip-ups, and then these websites kind of sell these products. Another important area to look at it is, if you see on your right, the cigarette packets. So they will, of course, since these are imported products, and also since they are being in a way sold illegally, so they will not carry the pictorial warning, the 85% pictorial warning, which are very, very important in order to deter uptake of tobacco. So that's also another aspect of how industry is trying to is getting away from following the law in India. Next slide, please. Another, to lure youth, promotional offers and discounts are being offered online, on social media, through various programs, through rewards program, through events, and through other activities. So this is again, a very usual tobacco industry tactic. This is same. I mean, this could be same for other unhealthy products, such as fast foods and alcohol also. Which we see regularly in restaurants and in malls and in food courts. So that's again a tactic that they adopt by giving free samples, promotional offers. Next slide, please. Again, so this is promotion of tobacco products in online streaming platforms. The OTT, which we call over-the-top platforms, they grossly violate the law. PHFI, Dr. Monica's team, has done a study on the depiction of tobacco in online streaming platforms, and it shows huge kind of violation by these online platforms. And sometimes the shows are kind of made, like one on the right, which is Chai Sutta Chronicles, which is very, very normalizing and in a way aspiring the use of tobacco also, within youth. And these are directed towards youth. Youth are the major consumers of these products. So it's important, for us to actually know about what the industry is trying to, showcase to us, and how they are normalizing the use of these unhealthy products. Next slide, please. So coming to what all you can do, youth and representatives, us, what all we can do. There are many options that are available with us. Next slide, please. The first is, like, my previous and earlier speakers have also said, never initiate, never ever start tobacco. Know the harms, the health harms, and the harms it can cause to the family. Speak to your friends about, if at all they are tobacco users, to tell them to quit. Even if you are a tobacco user, to quit today, make a quit plan. Spread knowledge about the harms of tobacco and how it can wreak havoc on the families and on the communities. Influence and act. Be an influencer. Try and tell people, give scientific arguments about what tobacco can do, the damage it can cause, and then act upon it. Know about the laws, know about your rights, know where and how it is not okay for people to smoke in front of you. If you want to kind of seek help, do that. So these are some of the things that you can do. Next slide, please. This is a campaign that we've started on social media, and this is directly linked to youth and how they can also become change agents. This is a social media campaign to actually denormalize tobacco industry interference, their marketing tactics. So what we do on the platforms, and I would request all the people who are right now on the call to actually look for this page and sign up on it. This will actually tell you about what all are we trying to do is we are trying to educate people about what the tobacco industry in particular is targeting youth with and for. Additionally, we are also through social media trying to tell the people about what are the laws and what are the options available to them. And thirdly, we are also telling people to become a change agent and report if they see any violation of tobacco and its depiction, be it near their schools, colleges, on TV, near their where they live, where they hang out, and click a picture and report it on the Facebook page. Become a change agent. And what it will do is it will create a repository of violations by people in India, and then we can present the repository of these many violations to the relevant authorities such as Ministry of Health, State Department of Health, maybe police, and different stakeholders, and tell them that these are the voices of people, these are the voices of citizens, and they want change in which tobacco is perceived and is being normalized by the industry. So there is a need for strict law. So this is a very, very important kind of a campaign that we've started, and we would request your support. And I mean, you would be the change agent and the change agents, and you can make it a long-term success. And this basically is for the people to report, like I said. Next slide, please. This is a depiction of how the page looks. As the name suggests, it is enforcement and reporting movement. We are trying to create it as a movement wherein people are reporting themselves about the violations that they are seeing. Do sign up on the page, do like the page and follow the page, and you'll get regular updates on the laws, and if at all there are any changes, news, and related developments, and how you can report and report about tobacco violation. We are the next slide has a small video. So this video will actually tell you about how to report any tobacco violation on our Facebook page. And I would request Astha and Upinder to actually share it with participants also after the presentation, so that they are aware about how to report it on the page. And we are always there to answer any questions. So yeah, if you can play the video, please. So these are small 4 steps you can actually take on in in reporting any violations. So I would again request and urge people to and especially youngsters to look the page on the Facebook, like and share, and then start reporting so that we can create a repository, like I said, and present it to the relevant stakeholders in taking steps for effective tobacco control in your state, in India. Um, this is again some of the steps that you can do. Look around your schools and colleges and report any tobacco violation on the term page on this page that I mentioned. See films and series that show tobacco on online media. Just click a picture and send it to us on Facebook. You can also click a picture and message it to us. See a hoarding or pan masala ad in a newspaper, you see hoarding nearby, click a picture and send it to us. And then speak to your friends about how tobacco companies are targeting the youth and steps, similar steps that we've showed you, similar steps that your friends and peer groups and contemporaries can also take. And yes, you can also become a tobacco control advocate. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pant. And I do, urge the audience to go like this page as well. I think as a non-smoker, a lot of people who are non-smokers here will relate that we feel very helpless when we see somebody smoking, we want to stop them, or we see a violation, we want to do something about it. But most of the times we don't know what to do and how we can report it. And I think this is a great way to put it out there for people to see, and for at least somewhere maybe the right stakeholders to see what is happening in the nation and what is the reality of the law and how it is actually turning out to be. I think this session has been very, very important and interactive, especially to the youth, because, the film industry, like you both have discussed, and the media plays such a big role in influencing the young people. We see a lot of things like friendships being associated with smoking a cigarette together or something, and I think that is not needed to depict a true friendship. And yet we are seeing that happening just because tobacco industries are putting in money and putting it out there. And I think that it is very important to understand the innuendo that they use to reach to us, to the young people, that it creates an urge in your head you didn't even know you needed in the first place. So I'm really, really grateful to you both for conducting this session. And it was really, really informative. I think it's really eye-opening. And as young people, I think we need to understand when we're being made to do something we don't need to, or we are pushed towards something we don't need in our life. So I think it's very important. Thank you so much, Ms. Malik and Mr. Pant. This was a really, really great session. Moving on to the next part, I'm going to invite our next esteemed guest, Mr. Pranay Lal. He works with the senior management team at the Union to provide teams with strategic program and policy advice with focus on India and South Asia region. His core areas of interest are public health and environment. He has extensive publications in the area of public health, public health, global trade, ecology, and mysterious fever. He is a biochemist by degree and has a master's degree from the University of Oxford in environmental studies and forestry. We are highly obliged to have you with us today, sir, and to share your thoughts and insights pertaining to the presentation that has been presented by Ms. Malik and Mr. Pant. Hi, sir.
Thank you, Prableen and Gurpreet. Thank you. I think this is a session which is aimed at youth and people who mold youth, especially teachers and principals and headmasters. I'm going to talk to them. I'm not going to talk to my colleagues, the 14 people who are involved in this workshop, because I think they know more than what what I know collectively. I think Manish's presentation, and before that Vaishaki's presentation, was quite comprehensive in telling you how serious the risk is. And let me break your heart by telling you that even before we are born, there are indicators and there are markers in our body which tell us what kind of food our parents ate and what kind of contaminants lie outside of the environment which we are going to take birth into. So there's mercury, there's lead, all those kind of contaminants, there are pesticides. So there's also traces of tobacco as soon as a child is born. And I think it was Gurpreet who spoke about, and Prableen also, on secondhand smoke and the harms to the fetus. One of the things that I think perhaps Cyril will talk about next is, and I hope he does, and is that, what is it that we can do? And there is this massive manipulation by the industry. Just this morning, there was a agreement between ITC, which is India's biggest cigarette producer, an extremely corrupt company, and another very corrupt, globally known corrupt company called Bayer. So both of them have agreed to join hands. Bayer produces some of the most toxic chemicals in the world, including DDT, the most persistent chemical in the world. And what they have agreed on to sell in India is chemicals that are now being phased out in the West. And as you know, ITC also has a lot of interest in agriculture because they produce ITC Ashirwad Atas, they make biscuit, they have interest in sugar, they want to get into alcohol, they're being prevented to enter from into alcohol sector. What I want to say here is that, usually you don't find good actors or good corporate citizens partnering each other. You generally find bad actors partnering bad actors, and this is what makes things a little difficult to advance public health or the general good, whether it's environment, whether it's social equity. And they try to look good. All these companies will tell you on their website that they have, gender equity pay, and they have, all those good things that look good, but actually they aren't. Think about it in the perspective of tobacco. Wherever you grow tobacco, there are no forests. If you were to look at Andhra Pradesh, they have only one small sanctuary which has 2 tigers, and that too they were introduced from Odisha. There is no forest in Bihar where the first tobacco plantations were set up. And wherever you grow tobacco, for example, you do not get tigers or forest or elephants. So that's an indicator that they're not environmentally good companies. And also these companies, if you go to the web page of ITC, you will see that they are being given the award of being the greenest companies, every few years from prime ministers and presidents and including the UN. Don't believe a word that you hear from industry ever. Trust me on this. I've been fighting industry for a very, very long time, whether it was on air pollution, on pesticides, and now tobacco. Also, don't trust your government, because the government does not give you enough rights. Think about it in this way. We are in terms of the tax base, we are possibly the most progressive among developing countries, where people pay their taxes honestly. And yet we don't have a choice when it comes to the budget to ask questions on a budget on how much money from the taxpayers' money, whether you are buying a service or a good, or whether you're paying your income tax, your parents and your teachers and whoever, children, are unable to ask where their tax money is going, right? And that is critical, because in every other developed country, you have that possibility of asking where your tax money is going, right? So I think what is critical is, do not trust anyone in terms of questions of environment, your safety, your future. It's in your hand. And certainly do not listen to industry, because they are there to manipulate your young minds. They've given you devices. It's become a problem for us. It's created mental health issues, attention disorders, learning disorders. It's sad to see that children today have, there's several studies on this, that, the quality of writing has reduced drastically. So what I'm trying to say in a very roundabout way, and I'm not trying to repeat what speakers before me have said, is that, there is this massive manipulation that takes place in forms in which you cannot imagine. And I would urge you to come together, form networks, form coalitions of your own as when you are children, and hand them over as you graduate from school or from college. Give it over to other children to take it over. One of the small steps that I think you should start with is a Yellow Line campaign. All schools should know this, and I hope all the teachers know this, that there is no sale supposed to take place within 100 yards outside of a school or an education institution. And I hope that Punjab and Haryana and Chandigarh will start with this first and become the first state with near 100% compliance. I think that is a starting step. Reduce the number of shops that sell tobacco. Why can't it be like alcohol? Why is tobacco being sold in every kirana shop or every general merchant store? Why can't it be like petrol and guns and alcohol? Why can't it be licensed? So these are questions. Why should it be available to everybody? Why should a child who's going to buy a packet of cigarettes being shown a packet of tobacco, right? So this is the moral duty of the government, and the government constantly fails us because it does not want to take this important decision. I'm going to end here in interest of time, and thank you so much, Upinder and team of GSA, Vital Strategies, Union, and MACT for organizing this very interesting and very pertinent discussion. And I hope the future webinars also draw interesting conversations and make teachers, principals, and children to think and organize them to take action. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pranay, and I thanks everybody, all these esteemed guests who are present here. I think we have a few questions that are lined up, but in interest of time, because most of the questions are relating to mental health, because we are seeing around, especially in times of these crises, we are seeing around that what all is happening, that there are youngsters who are falling prey to suicidal attempts and suicide. So our next session would be on mental health, and we will be talking about wellness among children and youth. So I would urge all the participants who are there today, who have registered for the session, to be present to get in more insights for that. And now I would like to invite Cyril, who's the executive director from MACT and a very dear friend, and he has 2 decades of experience in tobacco control. He specializes in advocacy and lobbying for tobacco control with key stakeholders. He has intensively raised his voice against tobacco industry interference, something that doesn't stays in his introduction. He also works very closely with children with his campaign against tobacco, the CAT campaign, Children Against Tobacco. So over to Cyril, who has helped us to organize this session also, to give a formal vote of thanks. Over to you, Cyril.
Thank you, Asta. Thank you very much for all the presenters and the participants, especially organizing this webinar by Upinder, and the welcome speech, welcome note by corporate, and Dr. Rana for the encouraging keynote address, Ananya for introducing the topic, and Dr. Niragi, the senior tobacco control activist and guru for most of the tobacco control community in India. And then thanks to Prabhalan Karur for introducing presentation. And thanks to Vishaki. Thanks to Vishaki for the wonderful presentation, especially about the industry. And then thanks to Manish Pant also. And thanks to Pranay for the encouraging speech. And thanks to Dr. Asta for coordinating the event. So when we are talking about the tobacco control, tobacco is not good for health. Same time, the tobacco industry, it's also not good for our children. So without addressing the tobacco industry, it's very difficult to control the tobacco. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar. I hope we will carry the message and then we will do something in the field. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Cyril. Thank you so much. And at the closing of the webinar, I would once again like to thank our partners for this session, the International Union, the Southeast Asia Office, Vital Strategies, Hriday, MACT. Thank you so much. And thanks to all schools, colleges, and universities who supported this webinar with the presence of their students, their teachers, and many parents who have joined us. We look forward to the other 2 sessions and participation from all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Banjar. Best wishes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.